So we've got a little bit of time for questions from the audience. So would anyone like to ask a question, make a suggestion? Anything more?
Would you care to comment, having what you've just shown us, on Sydney Morning Herald's article that computers are going to take over?
Do you want to comment, Michael? You go.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, well, this sort of activity, we sort of looked at the fact that it can be done with pen and paper as well, so there's those options. But Kaya and Anoli, the two kids are probably the artistic ones in our family, actually go to an Arana Steiner school. And yeah, they don't use computers at school. And and yes, we've got the computer at home, and we do have access to the internet, and they don't go on there, they don't play a lot of video games, those kids. My boys do, sometimes. But they could just do it. They played, and then they were like, oh yeah, I've had enough of staring at a screen. So it's certainly evaluated for them. In the broader picture, I can't speak for what happens in other families around Australia, but yeah, when it's used appropriately, and that's part of what Steve mentioned with, if we're going to write something like this up, we'll articulate that purpose for those steps. Where does it go to? What are those serendipitous moments? What's the point of this technology? Why does it value add? Where does it value add? And without that information, it is just this little gimmicky thing, and will probably possibly fall flat. But we're certainly going to be spending that time, and we do, apart from the deadlines that Steve makes us follow, because the Commonwealth Government makes him follow them, we have, to a certain extent, that luxury of time. I've only just come out of the classroom, and I've constantly been battling that, there's this great idea, I'd love to have the time to develop it, to justify why I'm doing it, or to find these other ideas from all over the place, write them up, do them properly. And at the moment, I've got that. Kristen's got that, Bruce has got that, and when Steve has a chance to come and play with us, he's got that as well. So, as mentioned, you guys have got lots of great ideas, and they're working. You guys know they work. And we would love to have those conversations with you, and on the phone, via email, and work with you to, if you've got this idea of how you may want to develop it for it to work even better, whether it's with the technology or not, sort of going back to the original question, then yeah, we can do that. Absolutely.
And I'd just add, anything can take us backwards or anything can take us forwards. It actually doesn't matter whether it's technology or textbooks or the teacher or anything. But hopefully it'll take us forward. There's a question up the back.
Yeah, I think it was similar. Are you really interested in computer-based learning resources or hands-on, pen and paper ones? I think it's
All of the above.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all of the classroom resources have to be available through Scootle, so they have to be web-based. But we certainly have every intention of making them available to be printed off on PDFs with QR codes and things, so you can hover over it and you get a little video of how the students were doing this, or some commentary from the teacher or the developers or whatever, to try to elaborate on that.
Yeah, some of the lessons that I'm currently trialling sort of with circle formulas in a Year 8 classroom just involve paper, like A4 sheets of paper, and there's no actual measurements, there's no rulers, there's no technology in that respect. It's just A4 sheet of paper and a whole bunch of different circles and spheres and those sorts of things. So that whole gamut of accessibility options.
Any other questions?
Oh, 2 heaps.
I just want to share
America.
with you that the resource is just a step forward from what we used to do sort of horizontally, and I've used a lot of that using SMP, which is an old sort of English-based resource, but it was great. But in order to use it during the lesson, I had to print a lot of sheets so kids could cross it and go a step further, whereas this one is so much more attractive. It's just great, but it's...
And that's the power of the web.
It's the power
Yes,
of
yes,
technology, I
yes,
suppose.
yes.
So that is great.
We had a question here, and then we'll go back to Peter, and that might have to be it, I think, Judy. Yep.
Using symbols, not letters and numbers, kind of reminded me of logic gates and stuff. And in the sense that it's kind of accessible yet challenging, and there's a lot of scope for connecting and building on top of. Maybe you'd be able to augment it a little and build some rudimentary sort of decision making or logic gate sort of stuff. Just an idea that just pops in my head.
Thank you. That's a really helpful comment, and that relates, of course, really closely to the whole agenda for coding in schools. So thank you, that's a really helpful suggestion. And last, Peter.
One of the things I observe about technology, which I no longer am able to, was when I was a student here, you go on classrooms observing, at most half of the people would be working on the work they were meant to do on a computer. I went to Ford Street, I thought, gee whiz, these guys will be switched on, know it works. All right? But the moment you become a teacher, they see you.
Name and shame, Pete.
They see you, and immediately they're back on the work until you pass by. But when you're an undergraduate and you're observing, very few, only a small portion of the people are actually doing the work they're meant to do.
But I would add what proportion of students are doing the work they're meant to be doing if they're not on a computer. And even if they have their textbook open, and even if they're writing in their book, what are they actually doing? And
it's really hard to be diverted comprehensively when they're not on Facebook.
But I want to respond to that by saying that's part of that third dimension that we call the supportive knowledge building culture. We want to create a culture in the classroom and have the resources that will do it, where students will actually want to be engaged in that higher order thinking. And the active role of the teacher, of course, is critical in that. And eliciting productive dispositions, because that's about the disengagement or the engagement or otherwise. So.
Great. Well, look, thank you very much. Please.